Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, CQ, and joining me tonight is one of the, two of the creative minds behind Game of Ham, the wild and ridiculous party game that's been making waves in the entertainment world with its clever blend of board game mechanics and card game hilarity. Game of Ham is known for its dark humor and the ability to customize the fun. This game has not only captured the hearts of players, but also sparked their creativity. For those that missed us playing it, we were playing it on Friday night. I was just telling our guests, and really just had such a fun time. It's an incredible game. Maybe not the easiest thing to pick up, but we got it pretty quickly. I'd say we got it pretty quickly. Game of Ham is a unique party board game. It's designed for adults. It boasts over 800 cards in its base set and more than 50 optional game rules. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's an endless amount of replayability. The game is crafted to provide a different experience each time it's played. Players can even create their own content and share it across the forums, and you can print it out and keep with it. It's awesome. Like I said, the game is known for its dark humor and the ability to make players squeal with laughter. I mean, there's no way other to say it. It goes with the theme, or hide in shame, because it's one of those games. The game encourages its community involvement, has a strong presence in social media. A couple key things. It's intended for players aged 18 and over, due to obviously it has very adult content. As if you watched, a typical game can last anywhere from 20 minutes to several hours, depending on the chosen rules and the game mode. Can accommodate 3 to 15 players, making it suitable for both small gatherings and larger parties. So with that all being said, let's dive right into it. Let's get into the minds behind the game, explore the journey of creating an experience that turns every gathering into an uproariously good time. Please welcome to the show, if I can remember their names, it's Laura and George, the team behind Game of Ham. Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello, you nailed it.
Okay.
And thank you for that very warm intro.
Oh God. Okay. I'm not usually that long-winded. I lie. So let's dive right into it, because there's so much I want to talk about in this game. This game is so much fun, so hilarious. I can only imagine there's so much story that goes into it. But first and foremost, we want to get to know you. So first up, it's do you guys have a military connection? What is it?
Well, one of our best friends is a former Navy. He was working on submarines for about 6 years, I think.
Okay.
And actually, he was one of the people who did a lot of the play testing, where we realized this game is made for 3 professions: military, first responders, ER nurses. If you can't tell by playing it, we like our humor on the darker side, the way Scrooge likes his coffee, dark and bitter.
Love it. Love it. What about you, Laura? Any connections?
No.
Well, your great grandpa.
Oh, well, that's
well, that's a whole different thing.
It's fine. It's fine. There's,
right there.
No.
We have a dark history in Germany, so we're not gonna dive into that. But yeah. So thanks for bringing that up, dude.
Oh, what am I here for? I
did tee it up.
Yeah,
I teed it up a bit. It's okay.
Well, actually, my grandpa was also in the Greek army during World War II as well. He was one of the guys who was fighting in the northern Alps and ended up getting captured. He has a whole story. And frankly, I never even fully heard it until after he passed, which is really unfortunate. And my other grandpa, he was a dentist in the military. I don't know if that counts. He was stationed over in Germany.
Absolutely counts. Somebody's gotta fix them teeth. No, that's great. Funny, one of our very involved listeners is of Greek descent, and we talk about it all the time. So you got a nice connection there. And as always, people that are live, if you have questions for these amazing people, by all means, put it in the chats. We'll get to it as we can. But first, my questions, because this is my show, and I do what I want. What do you guys, outside of your own game, what do you guys geek out about? Right, we're a pop culture podcast. So what's your geek thing?
Well, you really love being on podcasts, so
I do.
She's been doing a con podcast with some of our vendor friends, because you do these shows long enough, it's like you develop like a vendor family. I mean, we were just at C2E2 this last weekend. If anyone who doesn't know that one, Chicago, so we got that smoker voice going on right now as our voice recovers a little bit. But
people don't realize doing a con and like working a booth. It is taxing. It is very taxing.
Yeah.
I like to say the Monday is my hangover day.
Yeah.
No alcohol needed.
You religiously consume cough drops.
And hand sanitizer.
basically.
You gotta have the hand sanitizer is a must because
that too. Yes.
you know people, man, you don't know where their hands have been.
Well, and
honestly.
we're holding those cards. I mean,
Yeah.
you put those in people's hands. So yeah.
Conventions are a wild place.
Outstanding. Okay, what else?
What
Well,
do you
yeah.
geek
What are you
about?
geek about?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I
Answer the damn question, dude.
no. Well, frankly, I geek out about the things no one gives a shit about. I love nature stuff. I love architecture. I love thinking marketing. It's just I like thinking about those random things no one else really thinks about. And well, I used to go work out a lot, but now I have no time anymore because well, every weekend back to back. Wrapped up the year last year, 35 shows.
Oh,
Yeah, this year it's going to be even more. And
that's incredible.
between that, you do some flying here and there. We're going to be doing a whole Southwest tour soon, where we're going to Arizona and then Dallas for DreamHack. Don't know if you do that show.
I'm mostly Northeast corridor, so everything from New York down to like, I mean, I get as far south as like Virginia Beach. Is as deep as I get into it, but I do love to travel. I hit up some conventions in California and I'm trying to get out to Texas as well. So nowhere near as much as you guys do, for sure. But I have definitely crossed paths with Game of Ham at New York Comic Con, Awesome Con in DC, Fan Expo Philly. I mean, a bunch of places.
We're everywhere.
Yeah,
if it's not at least 10,000 people, we're not there.
I mean, I gotta say, there's always a buzz around your guys' booth. There's a lot of interest and a lot of like curiosity. What's the general reaction when like when someone's coming up for the first time? Like, what is their usual kind of reaction to seeing all this?
A little bit of a look, I would say, a lot of the time. But a lot of the time, I mean, we've had some people who actually go through the cards and say, I've done that, and then you learn a lot about people doing that. And as you saw when you played the game, there's some very colorful things in there.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can't think of anything that I personally did in there, so that's got to be an interesting. Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting conversation.
Keep it that way.
We need some characters at these shows.
There's some
people with way more interesting lives than us.
Man, I want to get into specifics about the game, but we're just working our way into the conversation because I have some questions. There need to be answers. So let's talk a little bit from the beginning. What inspired the creation of this game? Like where did all this come from? Where did it start?
Boredom.
Well, yeah, boredom is frankly where it started. I mean, for me, this started way back in 2017, actually, like right at the start of the year, because I had just finished a contract position that ended with 2016. So going straight into 2017, I had some time on my hands. So my sister got me a really terrible knockoff of Cards Against Humanity. We're talking like, and I'm not even exaggerating, like 30 cards for $20. And it was a guy with a jigsaw on his head. It was all horror stuff, but very on the nose horror stuff. And I said, this is awful. You really spent that much money on this? And she's like, well, be grateful. And I'm like, this is awful. You wasted your money. And I said, we could do better. And and of course I had time on my hands. So I started doing it with her. She got bored really quickly because you only do that for a half hour, 45 minutes, but I'm a little bit obsessive, I guess you could say. I had time on my hands, and around 300 cards, I realized I was pretty good at it. And then it sort of became an evolution over the course of the next 2 years, fixing a lot of things that drove me nuts with Cards Against Humanity because I enjoyed it. I'm a fan of it, but it had its limitations where you'd slap your knee a few times, and after a while, it's like, well, there's not much more to it. So one thing led to another. The reason it took 2 years was, I don't know if you noticed, but the cards actually grammatically go together. I don't know if you noticed that when you're playing, it didn't really run into that issue where the grammar didn't flow.
Right.
That's one of those small things you won't notice, but it makes it so you don't have those dead cards in your hand as frequently.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So there's actually like a whole verbal algorithm that went into it that was developed over 2 years of constantly playing it. We're talking like over 300 demos in the initial process we brought it to every party we went to, and we were younger then, so we actually would like go to parties more. Now we're old fucks, but
back in the good old days.
yeah, now not as much these days. We played with like over 300 people, a lot of people strangers, and we played with people who didn't speak English as a first language because that was the test to make sure it worked. So we people who had Indian as first language, China, South America, Europe. It didn't matter where. Everyone eventually got it, and you realize things like some people don't know what a walrus is. So it became one of those things where try to make it work at all stakes, even if you think it's obvious, it might not be.
Yeah, and for those that didn't watch this on Friday, which first of all, shame on you, but we had two guys who English wasn't their first language. They're Spanish, they're Puerto Rican, and it was so fascinating because unlike something like Cards Against Humanity, where like you said, not to knock anyone, not to despair anyone else, but you know, a lot of times you might come across that term or that saying or that thing, and you're just like, I don't know what. I'm not pulling out my phone and Googling it. And something that I loved about the game is that, like, when you see a word like, what was it, corpophilia, and you're like, I think I've seen that word before, but I don't know what it means. And you've got the little description at the bottom, and you go, oh God, oh, okay, that's not.
And
what
that's
I
exactly
thought it
how
was.
it should be. The flavor and fun thing, the flavor text was purposely designed to be that small for you not to notice. I noticed it took a long time for anyone else to notice it. That's on purpose. Because one thing we learned is some people want to explain to grandma what bukkake is, and we're not going to take it away from you. But it's supposed to be that thing that just gives it that extra kick.
Yes.
And
yeah.
hopefully that's how you said it. And it actually bridged, and beyond just being like helpful, it bridged the gap with one of my passions, which is those fun facts no one gives a fuck about.
Yes.
So I was able to go into much more obscure territory. I don't know if you had that card pop up on either Saturday or Sunday, because I know it didn't come up on that demo you did. But did you come across the card Gueva Dolces?
No, I did. I mean, again, 800 cards. I haven't got there yet. What is it?
That's actually an example of one of the cards I like to bring up because it's so obscure. We've only met 3 people who knew what it was. It's a real genetic condition, though, found in one rural village of the Dominican Republic. 1 in 90 people are born with born female, and then at the age of 12 grow a penis, and it translates to penis at 12. And the 3 people who knew it, they were all in the medical field. Let's put it that way.
Wow,
and it's really so obscure that even medical field people don't know what it is. But
so you got a little educational aspect.
And you could go your whole life without knowing this.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
But you're welcome.
No, that's awesome. I'm trying to remember what was the one that like really got me. Wesley Willis. That's the one.
Yo,
yes.
You guys cracked me up. Dude.
Did you end up looking up that song?
I mean, we can neither confirm nor deny that we started like a music party afterwards.
He was apparently like a real Chicago hit, like one of those characters that a lot of people knew.
Yeah.
And you ever see that movie, that documentary, Super Size Me?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
He did the soundtrack for that.
No kidding.
You know the Rock and Roll McDonald song? That was it.
Son of a gun.
So
it must
knew him without knowing him.
It must. I don't know. Did you like hire fact finders? Did you?
His research. Just you don't want to see his Google search.
Like I said, I just enjoy the random shit no one else does.
Oh man, that is. I
also had a friend who was obsessed with him because he loved really bad music. The kind that's like the people who enjoy those really horrible horror movies, not because they're good, but they're so bad that they're good.
Yeah.
So
there's one card in the game which is the 24-hour KKK hotline with an actual phone number on it. So we had our friend Justin, shout out to Justin, call. So he's probably on the FBI watch list.
But funny thing is, when that card comes up at shows, you always get that one wise ass who wants to call it. Recently, it's no longer actually a hotline. Now it's a psychiatric line, which I think makes it so much better.
So it's like an inside thing where it's like, okay, if you call
it evolved
you need help
with the game, and it's just better for it.
Oh man, that's so awesome. Yeah. For those that are out there, don't look up. Was it Wesley Willis or Wesley Willis? Is there?
A fun story about Wesley Willis. Apparently, he would sing those really terrible songs on purpose because he had schizophrenia, and it was a way to chase away the 3 demons.
Wow.
So there you go. And he would greet people by headbutting him in the head.
That is
as one does in Chicago.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm learning so much today.
You're very welcome.
This is great. Oh man, I'm like crying over here.
I
Okay.
mean, this is a game that you'll find there's several layers to. You held the game box right in your hand, but I bet you didn't even notice what ham even stands for.
It says on the box.
It actually says it right under ham.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I don't know if people can see this at home, but let's try this. No, it's the zoom is just terrible. It
This
says
game is all about reading that fine print, hating
hating
mankind.
all mankind.
I'm also a Game of Thrones fan, so I love that as inspiration. And I love acronyms. So if you actually put the acronyms together, it's Go Ham.
Go. I like that. Yeah, man. You're right. There are a lot of layers to this. Holy moly, Jesus!
And if
Christ.
you keep going through it, you're going to find references in there that you didn't notice the first 20 times playing.
Oh my God! Now I'm excited to get back to it. So I'm gonna say goodbye. Good night, guys. We're gonna start another game out. So okay. I literally you've answered like my first three questions, which was like, tell us about developing it and the initial stages and why Game of Ham, why the name Game of Ham. So I guess we could just move
There's several layers to it.
right along.
And I love the idea of something sinister disguised as something innocent. And it kind of creates that thing. But one thing I do want to do down the road is eventually have a kid version of the game that specifically leans into teaching kids stuff. Of course, have some fun with it too, like stuff that'll go over a kid's head, like friction burns kind of thing. In fact, we did do a demo of playtesting the kid version, which is still in development. It's not coming out anytime soon. That's been paused because right now, one thing we're doing for the game is Cards Against Humanity and games like it. You buy the game and then you buy more expansions. It feels like more of the same. So the approach to this is giving you all the meat your body can handle in that thing. So you get a lot of mileage. You don't need more expansions, but instead we give you seasonings, which is what we call our expansions, like the Depression Pack, which has been a bestseller across the country. So that's kind of been where we've been working a lot right now.
Who would have known depression's a big seller? Who would have guessed?
The second bestseller was Yep, That'll Kill You. Don't know what that says about the mental health in America, but I'll take it.
Nice. And I remember speaking to somebody like there's like a military were you trying to
yeah, I mentioned that to you. We're currently working on 2 military packs.
Oh yeah, that's a little foreshadowing. Right now we have our June release. We're going to have we're having our largest release yet in June, which is going to include the first board game addition to the game. Because eventually, so the way my mind works. I'm a puzzle person. If you can't tell by that D&D Master's wet dream of a rule book there, that thing's going to keep you busy for a while. But I love the idea of mix and match, as you could tell by the tiles themselves.
Right.
You could mix and match for a different experience every time if you want. But one of the visions is to eventually have games from different genres that stand on their own, but like a giant puzzle piece, they all connect together. So the first addition to that is actually the punishing board, and that's coming out with this June release. And the way I like to pitch that to people is basically it's a simple start and finish dice game. The board is very similar in style, I guess you could say, to the new one. It introduces 4 new ability cards. And essentially the idea is you start, you finish just like you would in that main game, and you move with dice. And because of your friends, you get edged all night long for like an eternal ring of hell kind of thing. With 4 new abilities that rather than, as you could see in this one, it's so the concept of the board was to create something where the board affects the cards, but the cards affect the board for this push-pull. But with the punishing board, it very much leans into the take that, sorry kind of Candyland kind of thing. With new abilities like, how you bounce people to a white spot in the game? Now there's an ability card that allows you to move people back, but it goes further than that. So now you could bounce them to the last one, even beyond that. And another one that allows you to actually move the board tiles. So when you move the board tiles, you could actually cut off paths. So until you shift the board tile back, it becomes something where you're trapped and can't move. Yeah. And then another one where you basically make people move to a target spot on the same board tile, so they have to move back before they move forward. And it could stack. So it could be
eternal hell. Essentially, it's a nightmare, yes. And it's never ending.
And the last ability is just a counter on its own to offset the punishment.
Sure. No, that's.
So it's essentially you're edging your friends all night.
I love it. I love it. And so the idea is that game could stand by itself.
Exactly.
Or
be incorporated.
You could incorporate it. I think of like Munchkins, the card game Munchkins, where you can have different sets, but even in that, like, they're all the same game. It's just you're compiling. But no, I love the idea of like it's a different game with its own mechanics, but that they like a Megazord forming, they can
Yeah.
combine
It's like-
and
It's like
Exactly.
the Power Rangers, you know, how they like all assemble into
Exactly.
different. Yeah.
Exactly.
that's
And I mean,
fantastic.
that's what the idea is. The idea is, I guess my vision sort of takes a little bit of inspiration from like video games. You know how there's all that, you could put skins on all your characters or whatever. The idea is to make something like a board game that sort of ties into that by introducing new concepts that all connect together to create what you want.
Mm.
So, I mean, she's given a little foreshadowing to the thing that's not even coming out in June. We're actually releasing 2 military packs, as well as some more pocket hams. Pocket ham is what we call our Cards Against Humanity version of the game, and we call it the pocket ham because it's designed to fit in your pocket. So it's just sort of like a nice general blend. The when in doubt, whip it out guy. Yeah. But in June, we're going to be having stuff like depression sold so well. We're going to have the anxiety pack coming out because what pairs better with depression than
Anxiety,
anxiety?
of course,
Gotta have some fun.
of course.
Maybe some good parenting too. But yeah, anyway, there's a bunch coming out. We got 8 new flavors.
Oh, that's a fantastic. We got Greg in the chat. He goes, I feel like I need a YouTube video series on how to play the game.
There is.
There
So
is.
it's already taken care of, Craig. Don't worry about it.
In fact, you could just look up how to play Game of Ham.
There
video.
really are. Before we went live, I watched a couple videos. There's some really great ones that break it down. But again, something that makes it, I think, so unique is that there's like 50 different ways to play it. Really,
If
you
you're
can,
hardcore, yeah.
yeah, you could play it the way you want to play it. I love that there's like a section for like, okay, these are the mandatory rules. These are things that are core, and then these are all the other things you can do and wacky ways you can play and whatnot. So, but now I'm very, my brain's spinning because I think we're very similar in that. I'm like, okay, so if this connects here, and then you can move it, and then
Exactly.
I see
In
how
which
you
case,
can
you'll
really.
also love this. You'll love that there's also a rule in there for generating random rules to play with because it's a la carte kind of thing.
Right. Oh,
And
man,
in fact, one thing that happened since obviously party games, drinking, smoking, all the good stuff. A lot of people don't do that stuff, and it kind of kills the vibe sometimes if you have a group that doesn't all want to do that. And then it's weird for the people who don't want to do that because, well, peer pressure. So we have a solution. They're doing lemon shots with you. So everyone's going to suffer. Just the next morning's different for everybody. But I argue they might even have it worse.
Yeah. I think like the hot sauce shots, like you get a little shot of hot sauce, you get burn on the way down and the way out.
There you go. Down and out.
There was another comment I saw. One of our guys, Angry Elf, says he's skimming the website right now. He sees the deep dish big box. What is that? He'd like an
It's a
explanation.
big box.
Well,
It's
believe it or
literally
not,
what it is. So you can fit
I mean,
all your other shit inside of it.
you
So
could
all
hold,
the expansions,
yeah. I mean, you could hold that box right now and shake it in front of the camera. There's
yeah.
no empty room in that thing.
It is packed
So
really well.
the big box is like our version of Cards Against Humanity's bigger, blacker box. So if you want to think of it like that, you could think of it like that. But we, of course, had some fun with it. So it's like Where's Waldo with him and a little cop chasing the robber ham because fuck, why not? We love our random. We love our random.
That's
and if they're on the website, there's actually a section where you can see the sample cards. So that's something they could look at too.
Yes,
hopefully
absolutely.
as well.
Yeah. So you can see what the depression pack is, for example.
That's awesome. We have a question that says, how old are these brilliant kids? So
how old do we look?
Yeah, I mean I'm just reading what the chat says. I'm staying out of it.
I just hit 30, so my knees are, it's falling apart.
So I feel like 26 is that downhill slope. I mean, for me,
he's older,
32
yeah.
here.
Yeah. There you go.
But this journey started back when I was 25.
I mean, you're doing it right. That's what I'm going to say is you're doing it right. I mean, you got to find a passion, find what you love, do that, and figure out a way to make money. I tell people, I tell the kids all the time, if you can, find what you love, figure out a way to make money from that, and you win at life.
Yeah.
You're living better.
In 2022, when we started, COVID kind of shut down the whole convention circus. So in 2022, I graduated from graduate school, and I literally skipped my graduation to go on this cross-country road trip with him to, go to all these conventions. So I said, that's why I always joke about I have a master's degree in unemployment. I just sell ham at this point.
Well, that's how we bring home the bacon now. I mean, you gotta have some fun with it. But I mean, the journey, you kind of heard the beginning parts, but for the 2 years that it took 2,000 cards to get it to this point, And it became like a personal challenge, come up with something new. Actually, going to the military thing once again, that friend I was talking about who was the Navy person was one of the biggest advocates for this game is not dark enough. This game is not dark enough. This game is not dark enough. So I kept pushing the limits until I created like straight up dark web. I'm not even going to share the card. It was so bad. I don't think I'm never going to,
It's never going to be released.
I don't think I'm ever going to publish the actual stuff. We have 2 con exclusives now that sort of dance the line. We have there's Secret Menus, That's Offensive, and Gazing at the Abyss, which we only sell at shows. People actually have to sign a waiver to purchase.
Yeah, we have a little waiver.
Yeah, we call it the Ledger of Lost Souls. It's like Yearbook the Day You Lost Your Soul. Gazing at the Abyss is a little nod to the uncut version, which was Into the Abyss. But eventually, I like to compare that development to, I don't know if you're familiar with Heath Ledger's preparation for the Joker role.
Yes.
So that's what I like to compare it to. I literally would be isolated coming up with the most disturbing stuff and doing research on like the most disturbing things in history and all this other stuff to come up with material. So I felt like awful, like really awful. I did this for like 3 weeks and I work obsessively. When I say I work obsessively, I mean like 65-hour weeks when I'm like a dog with a bone. So after doing that, I'm like, oh my God, I need something to offset this. So I created the exact opposite, which is now published, Rose-Colored Glasses. Which is
Hallmark in card form. It's very cute and innocent, but if you throw it in with, what can O.J. Simpson always masturbate to, quality time with the kids, not so cute anymore.
And actually, I guess that sort of ties into the philosophy for that one. Ties into my background, which is I went to a fine arts college, so naturally finding a job was easy. But basically the concept of art, I guess, sort of plays a role in how I create the game, in the sense that the context in which you put something changes the meaning of that something. For example, you go to an exhibit in a museum and you see a bunch of African tools, totems, and all these things that are just everyday life for someone in different parts of Africa, for example. But because you've now changed the context and putting it in a museum, now it's art, whereas before it was just utility.
Yeah.
Or like when I worked at an art gallery briefly, there was this one art piece where it was just a bunch of colors smeared together, very blurred, dark colors. And it's like you get the sense of like an emotion just because it's all very dark color tones. And then you learn the history of the artist, and it was actually someone who survived the Holocaust, and this was their way of coping with the trauma involved. And because now you understand the background of the art, you now understand the meaning of the art in a new way. So that's kind of the idea with some of these here. Like Rose-Colored Glasses, you could completely keep it innocent. In fact, it's a great way to offset some of those things like depression, which it pairs really well with for that nice manic experience. But
it's like bipolar in a box.
There you go. Literally. There you go. And yeah, like Jesus's love is what O.J. Simpson could always masturbate to. It's just that chef's kiss.
Yes.
But
just so you guys know, a lot of people in the chats are like, I need this, I want this, I need all of them. You guys need to get these into the military.
Take your money.
Hey, military, right on our website.
So I don't know if you're familiar. Military Exchange. They're like shops on every military installation. Like you guys got to get these into the Military Exchange. Like
3 professions, and military is the number 1.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who love the really dark stuff, which is why so a little foreshadowing. I like to so another thing about the creation of each one of these, I like to say it's like a method actor. So I develop a persona when I go into the zone of creating these things. And it gets paced out. I mean, Mark Twain, when he created a book, he would do a bunch of books simultaneously, and that's how the process is mostly. But now with less time, I sort of get a more hyper focus. But creating method acting is sort of a background. So the military packs, we got some feedback on what people actually wanted. So it's sort of like a blend of very dark, gruesome-ish stuff mixed with some real-world issues like homelessness, mental health, and military. Sure. As well as just like some silly stuff too to offset it.
Unhinged.
Yeah, so just unhinged. So it's like a nice little blend between 3 different things. Yeah. So each thing gets its own little personality.
My chat makes me laugh. One of those. I would hate to be this guy's therapist.
Actually, it's funny you say that because we even put a little jar on the table saying therapy fun, and that's how we get some tips.
Nice.
We need it though.
Well played. Do you guys when you're doing like the military ones, do you talk to obviously like veterans or military people to get like ideas of
Of course,
Yeah.
actually,
lingo and
so a little background on that. I actually, in creating that, I would watch a lot of interviews with actual soldiers talking about their experiences. I spent hours watching this,
He did.
taking little things, trying to listen between the lines of what's being said to understand the overlap in thought, which is why I was able to create this persona. Because I have no affiliation with the military, but I like to understand. So between that, watching a lot of the more emotional things uh, in Hollywood, I guess you could say, and just generally just small talk with military folks because I love learning about it. That's more or less where the inspiration was for just about all of it. I like to do right by the subject matter.
oh yeah, because you know you're gonna have those guys that because I mean we're vets. I mean we're the ones that watch the TV show and be like, these guys no trigger discipline, and man, that guy's his patch is all jacked up and his fucking his beret is pointed the wrong way, and so you know these guys will nitpick every little military thing. So I'm glad you're taking it serious and putting together the right
I
things.
feel like it wouldn't be doing it justice to not go a little more on the serious side with these things because that's a little bit more truthful to the subject matter. But of course, you have a little fun in there too. Sprinkle,
That's
just
awesome.
a little bit of
Awesome.
salt.
How do you to kind of get back to sorry, great conversation, but now I want people to know about this game.
Okay.
So how do you recommend, I dived into it first time player. Again, I watched some videos and things like that, and I was playing with first time players, but how do you guys recommend, first time players approach the game?
So we made the quick start
Sober?
guide.
Oh,
Yes.
step one,
Yes.
sober.
So we mentioned this during that little bridge, but yeah, no. When we hear feedback from people, a lot of people like being totally trash going into it, and from what we've heard, the board is too complex for people when they're totally trash. We only met one person who was like, this was doable, trashed. And I'm like, you're a hero, because frankly, we heard from another 10, 20, 30 people,
It was not possible.
not possible. But granted, when you're like shit-faced, jump in that, they just play Cards Against Humanity style. You guess it, that's
Yeah.
one of the ways to play the game.
That's awesome.
But it is very simple. So I would just use the quick start guide
Yeah.
and then follow that along, have that on the table with you. And then you can always use it as a cheat sheet.
Or that 5-minute video, which you probably stumbled across. It's one of the first things that pops up on Google.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you even noticed on that quick start guide, it says for first time players and lazy shits, because we get it.
Yeah. Who wants to read 24 pages?
We know our audience.
Oh man,
Actually,
it's so
fun
good.
story about that. In the uncut version, because it's very easy for me to spiral. That's how this rule book got to be so out of hand.
Stops talking.
Oh, well, there you go. But
he's like, I'm doing a podcast, and it's like, I'm gonna make you have all the talk, and then it's okay.
Well, yeah, but
take the glory. It's okay.
But the quick start guide was actually something after we got our first prototype, where we then brought it to the table and brought it to people who had never played the game and said, can you figure it out? And they're like, no. And, and we're like, okay, I guess we need a quick start guide. So then we created the quick start guide, but then to get it so it was actually good, we had to find new people who didn't know it still. So finding new people each time was a little bit of a challenge, but eventually that's why the quick start guide exists, because we wanted someone who didn't understand anything about this whatsoever, maybe didn't even know Cards Against Humanity, could jump right into it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when we were able to pass the test, which is part of the reason why it took 2 years to actually come out. And fun story, because we kind of talked about the beginning parts. So this game actually came out at the end of 2019, and we got one big event in and 2 tiny ones. When I say tiny, I mean maybe 200 people showed, where we learned we never want to do this again. Well, we did Anime New York City was actually the first event ever we did. So that was where we're like, okay, this is the way to do it, because making the game is a challenge. It really is. But actually making it take off, that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, if you're not willing to put in that effort, don't even bother.
It's a tough industry.
But basically, fun story. So when we realized conventions were the way to go, we planned the year-long campaign of doing shows back to back. And I remember this, March of 2020 was going to be the year we started. And it was 1 week before the first convention that our good friend COVID decided to put the pause on things. And funny enough, board games did really well during the pandemic, just not so much
Party
games that are not friendly for kids and games for, parties.
Because nobody could meet. Yeah, that
So
was rough.
I like to say, even though the game came out at the end of 2019, unofficially, the end of 2021 is when it came out, when we were able to do shows like Terrificon, because I don't know how much you know about the different shows when they went into COVID mode, but some of them canceled. Actually, Keystone just completely canceled. I don't know if you know that event. That was a Reed Pop event over in Pennsylvania. But basically, they all just condensed in one short period of time, all at the same time. And then yeah, from there, I took on a job as a marketing person, which I guess gave me a little bit of a different framing for things. And I like to say it was only May of 2022 where we started doing it full time that I like to say the game really came out, because then we were able to do it regularly.
Right.
Nice. Man, yeah. I mean, we could have a whole separate conversation about the whole COVID thing and how it impacted the industry and entertainment and all that. I mean, obviously, got things like E3 are just gone; they don't exist anymore.
Is that one permanently canceled, or is it just temporarily canceled?
It's gone. It's done.
Okay.
They've there's no plans to bring it back. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things. So many more. I'm gonna make sure we're not over time. Because there's so many questions.
No, I'm happy to stay as long as we're welcome. We're in no
God,
rush.
we could chit chat all night. I really do. There's something about creatives that I really love talking with. Whether it's music, whether it's game creation. We've had other video game studios and things like that on, and it's fascinating because there's so much. When I buy a game, when I buy a thing, and I take it in, it's mine, and I interpret it how I interpret it, but that's not always what the design was. That's not always what the thought was. You miss a lot of those intricacies that we've been talking about. That I've gone over this thing over and over and over and over, and I've missed a lot of this. And so this is the best part.
It was designed that way, though. Yeah,
that's exactly it.
Eggs, yeah.
We don't want you to get it all at once. Too much meat to handle.
That's right. That's right. A lot of military guys will tell you that. Anyway, that's whole other joke. So obviously, a lot of dark humor. How do you? Because again, being a military guy, and I know my vets out there, dark humor is how we cope. It's that and like black coffee. It's how you get through the day. But how do you balance that for those people that are maybe not in that realm of mind, ensuring that it's inclusive and it's enjoyable for all players, not just those that are looking for that dark humor?
Right.
Well, as the name suggests, hating all mankind. And this is where we let you season that pork to your liking. Rose-colored glasses is just one of the seasonings. To give you an idea, we try to give a full experience. A lot of people said go darker than the game, which is why those con exclusives exist, but that's why they'll be just that, con exclusives, because they're really bad. Yeah. In fact, those are the only cards we don't show. We give one light sample of each in them. So, but anyway, yeah.
What I do is I do a lot of the quality control. So he does all the creative stuff, right? He comes up with all the cards, and then we do test prints, and then I'll go through them, and then we categorize them, what expansion they go to and whatever. And then I try my best to have diversity in it in a way that it's not overloaded with, this is all poop and shit and genital humor, whatever.
And meanwhile, that's also what I'm doing simultaneously too.
Right. But, if let's say we work on the military pack, it's not all just this is what it is on the battlefield. It's also home life. There is injury. There is emotion. There's like all these different components that all matter together. Mm-hmm. And there is like a healthy balance of all the things that are incorporated in the same set, so it's not just one thing.
But also, I'm an idea generator, so for me, it's not hard for me to just keep coming up with shit. I could pull shit out of my ass indefinitely, almost. I mean, I was talking about how to get this game, 2,000 cards were published. Throw a guess at how many cards I'm at now. This was back in 2019. There were 2,000.
Oh my God, more than double, I would imagine.
7,000.
I officially, as of like about 3-4 weeks ago, surpassed 9,000 unique cards.
9,000, okay.
Wow.
9,000 unique cards.
That's a
So
lot.
so
Yeah.
if you actually
If you have to proofread that, yeah.
well, first off, yeah. Well, okay, fine, that's fair. So to give you an idea, because it sounds to me like you were interested in the creative process,
Sure.
I actually have a very strict like way of doing it. So there's the initial concept, because when ideas come, they come. You could try to fish for those ideas, but it's also good to just let the ideas happen naturally. Because if you're doing conventions back to back, let me tell you this right now, it kills your creativity because you're just tired all the time. But even so, you could sort of juggle between different things. Like, fun story, the Depression Pack actually derived because when I was still developing it, I was going to grad school for business, and I was like, I can't do this game and this graduate school at the same time, and I had to make the difficult decision between the two, because you could actually see, like, you could see periods of time, because the way this works, I rely on a theory, and the theory is that by doing this over time, I'm actually tapping into different stages of my mind developing as I age. That's the theory. And so far, it's played out pretty nicely, because the different chapters, you could actually see it in the work. And that's how the different expansions and seasonings come out too, because I'm at different points in my life. Like, the darker stuff came when I was struggling to figure out what to do with a creative degree and get like a decent paying job and figure shit out, because there's no roadmap with that stuff. And I went to a fine arts college where, don't get me wrong, I'm all for uh, to some level political correctness and whatnot, but to some level, when it gets to be a little too much, I guess there was a little bit of I like to point out some of the hypocrisies a little bit, which is some of the stuff that came up in it, but that's not all it is either. There's the other side too, which is the extreme side. I like to find myself playing devil's advocate, and you could kind of see that in my work as it bounces. So when you were asking that question before as well about the people who don't like the darker stuff, there's also plenty of light stuff too. But if you're someone who's worried about dark stuff, this might not be for you, because the threshold for people like that, it's just not there. But a lot of the expansions, it depends on what you like. Like, X Ways to Say I Love You is a little bit more playful. That one is like a lot of it leans into like cheesy romantics. Every answer specifically responds to how to say I love you to that special someone. It could be sweet like a breakfast in bed, but it could also be sour like a black eye. You know.
You don't have to keep
But
using
yeah,
your
no,
hands.
I'm a hand gesture person. She's keeping me in check here. But just like I love bait and switch too. Like, yup, that'll kill you. It suggests that it's just the literal stuff that'll kill you, which is too on the nose. I don't like being on the nose with my work. So it's also the emotional stuff that'll kill you. Like, one of the cards,
Terminal sadness.
like Terminal Sadness, or just the one that a lot of people laugh at the convention is Dat Pussy, because, well, yeah. And
Default, baby.
even my superhero pack, it's not just superpowers, it's things that should be a superpower, like reading above an 8th grade level, which is, fun fact, actually the US average, and I'm not making that up, and having a reading based game and traveling to every corner of the US now. I can confirm that firsthand.
It's sad.
I believe it. I absolutely believe it. I'm actually impressed that it's an 8th grade reading level.
There you
If
go.
anything.
I think it's gone up a little over time,
um, man, there's so much. There was a great question that came up while we were actually playing the game, and I wanted to bring it up now before I forget about it. Could you see this like as a video game, like almost like Jackbox
Yes.
party games?
Actually, this is something interesting to bring up too. And this is like something I haven't talked about in a long time, but the initial concept here was to eventually. So, in the initial thing, I thought of this as two pillars. The first pillar is the tangible game, which is what exists right now. And the other pillar, which is to create a thing that's open source, where people could create their own content, publish it online like a Reddit style forum with an up and down and voting system with tagging as well. And then you could start categorizing, like kind of like a YouTube. It becomes complex with the metadata, so it actually starts fishing for keywords. Anyway, there's a whole big vision here, and I invest it is expensive, and I was not like very wealthy. So I went overseas to India for development of this, and it was supposed to be a 6-month project where it was you remember, I take it you've played Call of Duty, right?
Obviously.
Okay. I was going to talk like you
Duh.
did, but I wanted to confirm first. You know how they had that one thing where you could create your own emblem, and it was the different parts. I think it was in Black Ops 2.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah, absolutely.
where you could create your own emblems and whatnot, the custom stuff. So there was going to be a way where you could create your everything, whether it's a colored card, a board, of pink card, gray card, you name it. And there's actually going to be different types of spaces too, so it wasn't just the square spaces. And those red circles are just the first thing, because one of the
Get to the point, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, there was a big vision. Okay, I'll just skip over the nitty gritty. But basically, the goal was to make it so there was also an app that incorporated all this stuff, so you could start sort of like picking cards up, saving them into like a playlist type thing, and then be able to play with that deck in an app.
Nice.
Now, this was supposed to be a 6-month-long project, and this was actually in the development before the game was published too. It stretched out to 2 years, spent a crap ton of money on it, and they just couldn't work out the bugs, and the whole thing fizzled. So the hope is, because I think at this point I have about 30 pages of detailed notes on how this is going to be done. The hope is to eventually revisit this, but that was just such a pain in the ass project that it's on the back burner for now. But if you could see, even on the back of the box, it still references it, because that's still on the to-do list.
So yeah, long story short.
Yes, there's going to be a video game.
There was a plan for it, but
and there still
right
is a
now
plan
it's
for it.
On hold.
By the way, you guys are awesome. Oh, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love you guys. I adore you guys. Reminds me of my wife, actually. So
she keeps me in check. I could keep going.
Yeah, I get into the same
keep
thing.
Saying my love language is verbal abuse. So.
There you go. And yeah.
Which, by the way, people love you in the chats. We got Susan, who's identifying you. My God, no shit. Laura and
George.
Jesus Christ. I wanted to say Greg.
The George from the jungle.
Close enough.
Yeah, do it a G. But Susan says George is definitely an ENTP, which I guess is what's that psychological where
actually I took a test.
Myers-Briggs, yeah.
INTJ is what I officially got.
INTJ. So she was close. Yeah. And then she says
the mastermind.
Laura's ISFJ, I guess, would be the
whichever the mastermind was.
Close.
Yeah.
Close to that.
Oh man. You guys, everybody loves you. You guys are great. Even someone said reminds me of Jim from The Office. You got that vibe going for you. So
I'll take it. He's one of my favorite characters.
That's a good thing. Yeah, it's a great thing.
Creed all the way. Sorry. No hate on Jim, but Creed is my man.
Oh my God, that says so much. That says so much. Oh my God. But he's great. So what challenges have you found in marketing a game?
Don't get him started.
in 80
Wrong
words
question.
or less.
Next. Moving on. Marketing is a bitch. That's all I can say. It's a tedious, long process.
Well,
it's expensive. You have to have your social media running, which is also tedious and annoying and time consuming. So there's a lot of little different components that work with. Market. Okay.
Well, let me ask him. Do you want the TLDR or you want the nitty gritty?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of questions to get to. Let me ask you this: what's the team look like right now? Who are besides the two of you? What's the team? Nobody else.
Well, the official team is really just my wife and I, but we have like guest stars join us for some shows too, and I mean we have the people we always use for shipping, the people we use for, but they're like contractors or whatever. But the official team here is really just my wife and I, and then sometimes we have people join us. We usually have. There's 3 people I usually have proofread. I segued and never even got to the whole creative thing. But beyond just the idea of going throughout time and having different age George, I guess you could say, come up with new ideas. There's actually about 4 steps involved. There's the initial idea, then there's the transference from text to my notes, and then from notes it changes a little bit, and then when it actually gets created into Photoshop, which is how I do my work, I edit it again. So it goes about through 3 to 4 editing steps from different periods of time, because I'll create the backlog and then address the backlog. So it actually evolves over time. But also when the cards are then published, it goes through a process where only the best get out. Because I could come up with as many ideas. I could come up with unhinged. I could come up with informative. I could come up with emotional, whatever. But basically, I have a few people then scrape away the best cards that I call the A-listers, and everything else, just chuck it. And the concept here is, have you ever heard of Cidre de Glace?
That's
This
new
is
to me.
this is a thing in Montreal. It's a type of dessert wine, where it's essentially hard cider that they distill down to about 15% alcohol. And the way they distill it is what I compare this process to. They basically freeze it, take off the ice, freeze it again, take off the ice. Alcohol doesn't freeze, which is why it gets distilled.
Yeah.
And that's the concept here, removing the ice until you get the perfect dessert.
I like it. I like it. That works. we're gonna clip that. Which we have a question. Greg wants to know. So, you guys hiring?
It's funny you say that, because one of the big challenges, and this is one of the things, for this to go to the next level, we will have to hire, and we're thinking about how do we want to do it that makes the most sense. Because one of the challenges, and this goes into the marketing, no one is going to give a shit about coming to your booth if you have something that's not face value. I understand what this is.
Yeah,
You go to conventions. How many board games do you see?
Quite a few.
How many do you see to a few different conventions? The same game company.
Oh, like the same one? No, almost never.
And the reason, it's a tough gig. You'll see the odd game company, but you won't see that same game company very often. In fact, I could think of only one. There's Tea Turtle, but they're not really a game company. They're more of a t-shirt company, I would say. What's with the?
Because you did a thumbs up.
So it gives me the contrary. Anyway, that threw me
job.
off. But so Tea Turtle, I don't really count as a true games company because they sell t-shirts as their primary thing.
Sure.
But the only other company I could think of that's like on the same scale as us with going to different shows would be Drinks with Frenemies. And we love Eric. He's one of our good vendor friends. I'm sure you've seen the booth at shows. That's the only other person. There's some people that do local shows that we all love too. There's Cheer Up. There's Mission to Planet Hex. What?
Don't continue. It's like he just rambles on. The question is, no, we're not hiring right now.
Well, no. Well,
sorry, Craig, if you were waiting for your answer.
we do want to hire. It's just figuring out how to do it, because right now we've actually gotten a whole system down packed. Because when you go to conventions, a lot of it is what you see is what you get, which is why we started doing all kinds of random shit. We went ham with our stuff. We have 109 pins now. We got 4 different plushies. We got 75 ham stickers. Our plushies we call My Little Hammies. And they got a squeak spot if you know where to press them. Anyway, so that's a whole different thing. But the big thing is,
it never ends.
Is the big thing is, you can't just have people sit at the booth. There won't be success. Yeah. There's like a certain amount of showmanship, and that's something that is hard to replicate. There's about 270 shows on our list, so it's not like there's not enough meat to pass around. But how do you find that sweet spot where it's worth it for someone to travel? Because we did hire a few times outside, and we had some situations where the people just didn't show up to the show, and then it's like we got screwed.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're going to do this and hire someone just for the sake of it, you need to have a stable, like, this person jumps from here to here, which we're sort of shifting to, because with this June release, aside from 109 pins, 4 plushies, 75 stickers, we are going to be going up to 23 unique products now with this new release. So the hope is to keep building and building, and we're currently playing around with the people who have been like our guest stars to see what model works best, because we want to make something that works for the people we hire as well as us. So that's sort of one of those things we're playing with this year.
That's convention specific.
Yeah, right. With convention specifically, yeah.
If someone wants to take care of the taxes, please let me know, because I
she
fucking
does that
hate
part.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
The
happy.
paperwork, man. That's the killer. That's the backbreaker.
Yeah. And especially with the sales tax, right? For each state, there's different sales tax, and you have to talk to all the different departments of revenue.
It's
So
a Kafkaesque existence,
I'm
if you've ever
having,
heard that
I'm
term.
having such a good time.
Oh yeah. Oh my god. Okay.
Bureaucracy is the worst. Anyway.
No, you guys are fine. You guys are totally fine. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. You're doing most of the work for me. It's great. I'm checking off as you go down the list. I'm like, all right, he said that. He talked about that. You're doing great. Do you want my job? Because you guys are killing it. So outside of your game, obviously, Game of Ham, what's your go-to? What's your favorite games to play and why?
She actually doesn't like games.
I'm a horrible loser. I'm an even worse winner, and I will let you have it. So it's always unpleasant to play games with me, and I don't really enjoy them. Now, if you play like a 5-year-old, if you whip out Uno, let's go. You know what I mean? But I don't have the patience for any like placement worker
placement,
whatever he said, type of games. You know?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Monopoly.
She's very light. I mean, the games that she enjoys playing with me right now: Potion Explosion, Azul, and do you enjoy Century Spice Road?
No.
Okay, not Century Spice Road. We tried Quacks of Quinlanburg. I liked it, but I haven't been able to get her played again. For me, I like just about all games. The only thing I
like video games, if that matters.
Yes. So for me, and I guess this is why I kind of found myself doing this type of game, I play almost anything except for single player games, which I just don't find stimulating. I just don't.
Well, you need the competition.
If I want to have a good story, I'll just watch a movie, but that's the main reason I guess people do it. But when it comes to the actual playing of the game, it feels like once you learn the algorithm, you just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But with multiplayer, it becomes like a thing of getting inside the mind of your opponent.
Yeah,
which is why building, I guess
getting better and better.
Yes. And in fact, I'm someone who specifically wants to play with people above my skill level because that's how I get better as a player. In fact, fun little Call of Duty story. I'll go on a tangent here. So, if you don't mind,
by all means.
Fun little Call of Duty story. So, Call of Duty is something that when I first played, I wasn't like great at or whatever, but now I purposely play with the worst guns in the game in order to get better with the good guns in the game. But basically, I ended up, my KD, if it matters, bragging rights, 1.4 or whatever.
Wow.
But with my good guns, much higher than that. Anyway, so going to the point. I just, hey, it's a geek podcast,
That's what this is. Anyway, you're right at home.
One of the things that really sums up how I like to do things was, you've played Call of Duty. You know how there's always that shark in the lobby and they always pair you with one person who's going to kick your ass? The person who has that 7-1 KD, and it's like, oh my God. But anyway, so one day I was like, for shits and giggles, every time I found one of those people who's just strictly better than me, I said, hey, you want to party up? So the next round comes, another shark comes to the lobby to offset this. We ended up having a full team of 8 sharks, and with my nice little 1.4, I was like second worst on the team. And we played, and it was just, and we just had nuke after nuke after nuke, and then we all got bored because it was just not fun anymore. So we decided to play in a lobby with each other where it was like just one shot sniper, or throwing knife. Anyway, that sort of sums up me, if that makes sense.
It explains a lot.
So he's a lot of fun.
But yeah, no, when it comes to board games specifically, the games I'm sort of drawn to, I really enjoyed Magic. And you guessed it, when I played Magic, I hated doing the meta stuff because it's just like, oh, look at me, I'm so special. I spent $1,000 on my deck. How cool. Anyway.
You just insulted a lot.
Anyway, for those insulted.
I feel the same way.
Actually, so I pride myself on creating a game that could take on a meta deck with cards that might not be okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I ended up making a mono black deck with cards that weren't those meta crush cards, but could take on a lot of those really fancy decks. And for me, that was the most fun. Or if I played with people who preferred winning, I would come up with the biggest troll decks. I would find the weirdest ways to win. One of my favorite things was just a mill deck where I would make people run out of cards in their deck to win. Fun thing in this game, the game we made, the game I made here, it actually takes a lot of Magic influence. I don't know if you noticed the stack rule.
Sure. Yep.
That
Work from the
was
top down.
directly
Yeah.
that was directly inspired by Magic, and the flavor text was actually also inspired by Magic. A lot of people think that's from other, apparently Apples to Apples, and now does the little descriptions on the bottom. That's not where it came from. It's from Magic. But yeah. So Magic.
There's a reason I love it. Magic was my first love, so it makes sense that I connect with it emotionally.
So that was a game I loved. I also play deck builder games as well as worker placement games. I wanted to start playing a lot of those top tier board game geek games. I ended up investing so much money whenever a sale came on for a lot of these big names. I would buy it, but I kind of gave that up when I bought both Gloomhaven and Twilight Imperium.
You can kill someone with them all.
And I tried learning Twilight Imperium at the same time as playing with people. Don't get me wrong, I watched the videos ahead of time, but if you know Twilight Imperium, you know why that's one that even if you watch it a million times, it's not going to be a smooth ride.
Yeah.
And when you sell it as, hey guys, it's only going to be 8 hours long if you know what you're doing, naturally people jump on.
Right.
I think we played for that one for about 3 hours, and then no one wants to ever touch that again.
Yeah, no, it was awful. Never again.
But yeah, I would say if you were to go by Board Game Geek rating score, we're sitting at around a 3 as our max out.
Okay. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Man, I feel like we've talked so much. Is there anything that we haven't covered? Because I want to make sure, obviously, that I give you guys the platform, because I want people to go out and play this game. I want people to have this game, and we're gonna talk offline because I need some of them con exclusives. We're gonna talk offline. That'll be a whole separate conversation. But is there anything about the game that we haven't touched on that you want people to know? This is your chance to speak to the masses directly and let them know why they should get this game.
I mean, ultimately, I'll put it in the way people say it to us. This is what Cards Against Humanity should have been, and frankly, going into it, that was the goal from the start. The hope was not to just be there's a lot of, when Cards Against Humanity came out, everyone went for the money grab. That wasn't the goal of this game. The goal of this game was not to tap into an exhaustive subject, but rather take it to that next level, not reinvent the wheel, make it better. Because for me, I feel like copycats are the lowest form of bottom feeder. That's just me. So when people say this is a copycat game, it's like, well, if you call this a copycat game, then Cards Against Humanity is a copycat of Mad Libs and Apples to Apples. Okay.
I think the strongest suit about what he did, I don't even claim any, bragging rights here, but are the ability cards with the board game. Like, as you guys did with the playtesting, and you play the green card down, you force the judge to pick a new winner, and then you still don't win. So it's like there's so many levels and strategies, and at the end of the game, it's like, oh, if I wouldn't have played this ability card, I could have saved it for this mechanic where I would have won the game 2 turns ago. So there's all these little strategies that you can play with, and makes it so much more interesting than you keep playing question cards and answer cards. And with Cards Against Humanity, a lot of times it's you play until you either too bored and say, hey, yeah, we're still playing this game, or you're too drunk and can't function anymore. So yes. With this, it has an actual end to the game, right? You win the board game and it's over, and then you can move on to a new round or do something else. But also, it's the strategy aspect allows you to screw your friends over, and I feel like that's just such a fun, unique way to spice up the game, that if you will.
And actually, going off what she said here, the rule book, to add a little bit more, I call it a D&D Master's wet dream for a reason beyond just being funny. It really is something that the rules could actually be activated while the game is currently running. And interesting enough, the game was specifically designed, so in Cards Against Humanity, you go around a circle and each person is the judge. This game was designed so the winner becomes the judge, and that was a way of offsetting the person who always wins. Now it's impossible for them to win every time. But also, by having that spot at the end where you have to land on it exactly, it does take a little bit more strategy. Like you guys noticed the gift giver mechanic at the very end.
Yeah.
That is a way to look at it too, because you could take advantage of those ability cards early on, but there's also an end game you have to be thinking about if you want to play it competitively. Obviously, it's a casual game, so you don't have to, but that's something to be thinking about too. And to sort of go, if you want to know a little bit more, because there's some stuff in development right now. I could tell you some of the directions that this is heading in right now. Who knows which of these? Right now, this is playing around with, because this is a fun little sandbox thing. If you didn't gather, that's exactly what this game is. It's a sandbox game where you build your own. But some of the stuff that's being played around with in the back end, because the punishing board is just the first published thing. Some of the other things that are currently being worked on, going to the layers part, currently there's profession cards, which are actually something that's being worked on. Have you played the DC deck builder game?
I don't think so. I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. Well, it's a sort of
deck builder
it's
game.
a deck builder game. You know,
Sure.
Shards of Infinity.
Yeah. I've heard of that one.
Okay. Well, deck builder. Anyway, basically, the profession is sort of a nod to my liking of deck builders, and the concept is each player gets their own different profession card, which has advantages both with the cards as well as the board. But then some of the professions strictly mess with other professions, so it becomes two different layers going on. So now the concept here is there's going to be this one layer, which is the professions, the next layer, which is the cards, and the final layer, which is the board. But even though that sounds complicated, it really isn't, because the three are going to be playfully interacting with each other. So that's one thing in the works. And then one thing that because this verbal algorithm exists, another thing that's currently in the works too is actually tying closer into the origins of all of this, Mad Libs, creating something that actually is much closer in that it's now you have to pick like 5 cards, 6 cards, 3 cards, 4 cards, and right now it's figuring out exactly the logistics of how to make it playable, because one of the obstacles right now is if you play with a group of people, it slows down dramatically.
Right.
So whether this is marketed as something that's just something fun for you to do for yourself or not, might differ a little bit. But basically, right now it's being play tested as a group vote edition, where now it leans more into like Greek Romanesque diplomacy. So that's sort of the theme going on here. And there's actually going to be little pillars, and those pillars are how you construct your stuff, so you don't actually know who played what. And then have you ever seen a Roman brothel token?
No, I can't say.
Well, those are very popular.
Off attention again.
Well, you said if there's anything else,
please.
Anyway, one of the things being played around with is basically the notion of casting your coin in order to vote. So it's a much more casual way to play a casual game. And then this will interact with all the other things, because all of it connects to some level within one piece of each other. So that's another thing in the works, and then there's more too, but I could keep going.
We'll have to bring you back to talk more about this, because this is I believe it or not, I find it fascinating. I really do find it fascinating, just kind of the behind the scenes and how these things come to life, and the work the amount of work that goes. My chat saying, "Wow, someone out nerded CQ." It's rare. Yeah. It's rare, but there you go. It can happen. No,
he calls me a nerd all the time. Yeah.
I was gonna say. I mean, I don't know how far you want to take it, but I was thinking like the professions, and then you go to like you can assign people different races, and like there certain races get advantages, and certain races it's harder to win, if you know what I'm saying. Like
that would be that 4th level.
We're
And actually, interesting enough, I've actually thought this out, and right now this is another one. So I actually have like I have many pages of notes on where I want to take this, because there's the stuff that's actually being flushed out right now, but then there's just the raw ideas. And one thing that also this reminded me of, the race thing, is also creating like an actual world map. And the world map actually has like things you could start capture points. So it becomes sort of a territory control as well as you go through. Anyway.
Yeah,
I will not let that.
We'll go game by game and steal just one mechanic from each game, and just make this. Remember The Simpsons when Homer Simpson made a car, and it was this behemoth because it took inspiration from like everything. Great as a great episode. That's really old episode, but but this I love it. I absolutely love it. I adore it. I want to thank you guys for allowing us to play it. It's definitely now in the rotation. There are certain games, I'll say it, where we play it and we're like, that was something, and it was an experience, and we move on. And but everybody really had a great time, and a couple people in the chats. There's a couple people already said that they're sold. They're ordering theirs.
Gameofham.com.
There you go, gameofham.com.
And actually,
go ahead.
Actually, one thing we're trying to do now, because we've been really bad about it, connecting with us on social media is something we'd appreciate. At Game of Ham. That's how we announce when we're in town, because the 2 con exclusives we currently have are just the beginning. We're going to be having more stuff, so that's a way people could keep in touch with us. But also for people who play the game, giving us a good Board Game Geek review, if you have an account like that, would be super appreciated, because you have the people who are just like, I don't like party games, let me just rating bomb this, and that kind of sucks. I mean, I think we're sitting at a 6.1 there, but everywhere else we're like almost a 5 on Amazon. We have like 5 stars on Google. We're good on everything but Board Game Geek, so that's one I want to get a little higher.
All right, you guys, you've heard it. There's your homework. Get an account. I've never even heard of that, but now I'm going to go find it. What's he said?
It's the IMDb of board games.
BoardGameGeek.com was that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, it's like the IMDb of board games. Yeah.
BoardGameGeek.com. You heard that, Mike. We're gonna create accounts, and we're glowing reviews. I'll get the whole team that played it. And Greg's in the chat. He says he's followed you guys now on social media.
Yeah, I just got a notification. Greg, you're my man.
There you go. See.
Next up, Fan Expo Philadelphia.
I'm gonna be. You guys are gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. We gotta link up.
Booth 447.
2 people above 6 feet, that's us.
Oh God, I don't want to stand next to you. I'm gonna look so tiny.
And I'm 6'3". Her family makes me feel short.
That's
a weird feeling.
I'm the shortest at 6'2". Yeah.
Oh God bless. I'll bring my little step stool, and we'll do a little interview. Put aside a couple con exclusives for me, because I'm picking those up while I'm there. All right. With that, thank you guys. I want to thank my guests, Laura and George. Right.
Yeah, I go by Greg too.
Greg, George, Jim, whatever. Jim from The Office. Either way, is good. It's been an honor to be out nerded on my own show. You guys are awesome. I love what you guys are doing. I love the energy. It's obviously something you both have such a huge passion for, and it's wonderful to see. So with that, last second, go ahead, plug your socials just so people can find you.
Yeah, Game of Ham and everything.
Well, I think he's saying type it.
I mean, you don't have to.
At
Game of Ham. There you go.
Ham like the deli meat.
Like,
I don't fucking know. Apparently.
But bad CQ, not good instructions. All right, I'm going to toss it to a break, and we'll do more show after this. But I just want to thank you guys so much for coming on, and really,
thank you. It was fun.
Yes, and we'll definitely link up, and I definitely want to have you back in the future where we could talk about.
Let us know
the next thing and the next thing. Yeah, and we'll just nerd out. You know what? Just leave the wife, man. Just me and you. We'll just nerd out, man.
Bye then.
We'll just nerd out. But somewhere. All right, guys. I'm gonna toss it to a quick break, and we'll have more show right after this.
Let's see it.